How are we doing with dreams?
Good.
Anybody ready to report something? Please, stand up and speak loud.
They look like ties, long strips of cloth, and I purchased them in hopes to have them blessed for my nephew, who was in a severe car accident 2 years ago and hasn't fully recovered and may never fully recover. So I'm approaching a holy man, and I can tell from his garb, and I kind of kneel down and I hand him these cloths to bless. And then I open my eyes and his face is way too young. I'm startled. And then he looks very sad when I hand him these cloths, and he just shakes his head and says, "It won't work."
There is a Jewish custom about dreams that when a dream comes out in some way, that you would like to have people handle the dream for you. So there's a whole liturgy that you recite. It's called Hatavat Chalom, the making good of a dream. And after you have done that ritual, people tell you in Yiddish, Legois Sigitten, which means interpret it for good. Okay? And that is based on what the Talmud says, that the dreams go after the interpretation. So I'm saying if Eve would be here, she would take you aside and would say, let's dream that dream a little further, where it gets another kind of result. Okay. Anyone else?
I just
Please.
got a sense of the humor of my dream. The plaque that I saw, a shiny plaque that you honor someone with, was my mother's sister's name, Aunt Tora. And the Torah just occurred to me that it was very appropriate to have that. But my Aunt Tora was the keeper of the family stories and the pictures. And she died some years ago, and I had some gifts to give her. And I thought, well, how silly, she's dead. I can't give them to her. But of course, it was a very easily interpreted dream. Thank you.
I am overdrawn at the bank. And I have a line of credit, and they've written me that I'm supposed to pay $43.06. But I thought I only had to pay $3.06, the interest, but they say I have to pay the principal, so why more? And I wake up when I'm writing a letter to the bank.
It's such a delight to see the sympathetic laughs that you're getting, you know? It's not, everybody feels that's me too, you know, overdraft and all that stuff. Bless you. Two more.
I am with my husband, and we are going down into a rocky river, a large creek or small riverbed. And we find, and I think this is at our house in Vermont, and we find a moose who has eaten so many apples that are fermented that he has gotten very drunk, and he has, which happens, and he has lain down, and that's true. He's laying down and is, you know, with his big rack and everything, is lying among the stones. And we don't want to disturb him, but what we're trying to do is see if the river has enough water in it for us to transport buckets of water from that river uphill to a new place where we're living.
Wonderful. I think that I'd like to think of what kind of mooses I would like him to see be drunk at this point. To stay out of our way and let the world go on. Thank you. One more. All right, I got to go in this direction. Go ahead.
I'm in a movie theater with my beloved Neshama, but she hasn't sat down yet, and she's walking down the aisle, and I'm like a couple of rows over, and I look over her, and all of a sudden she says, "My chest hurts." And I look at her, and all of a sudden I get this urgent call to just run to her. I get to her, and then she collapses and goes into convulsions. And I think she's either having a heart attack or she's having a seizure of some kind. And I'm absolutely panicked, just terrified. I try to yell out, and all that's coming out is like whispers, but inside my head I'm screaming. And then I wake up, and she actually woke up. And I just sat with it for a while, and all of a sudden I could feel like the other side, the otit was like I was here, and then the other world was very close to me.
All right, let's sit a little quiet with all these and see what we can hear in them that is addressed to us. Thank you again for this beautiful song. Such a good way in which we can be in touch with our appreciation of the goodness of the universe and the longing that we feel to live closer to it. So we need to do a little bit more of theory before we will go on to the celebration of today, and so this is the reason why I haven't yet put on the robe and so on. By the way, I used to do a class at Naropa. The title of it was Rituals for People Helpers. Rituals for People Helpers. The point of that was that imagine if you are a therapist to someone, and that person is coming to a milestone in life, to a special event. I can't imagine, for instance, if someone with whom you've been dealing deeply and they've shown you their soul and so on and so forth, that when the time comes for a wedding, they'll go to the marrying Sam around the corner. So people often who help people get asked, sometimes a funeral, sometimes a ritual, a celebration after a hysterectomy. You know, these are the kinds of things that you don't learn about in seminary, about rituals for after a hysterectomy. But you are going to find that when you work with people, that they will approach you to do ritual. So it's really good to have a sense and to watch ritual now a lot more carefully. What do they do at a wedding? You know, what do they do at a funeral? If you get a chance to, if there's a friendly minister who wouldn't mind that you shadowed them, that would be a wonderful thing also, that you would see what are the rounds in the hospital like, you know, all these things. Because you're not specialists, you know. You are all of lifeists, you know. You're generalists about everything. And so therefore, these are good tools to have. And as you will grow in your own home ritual and what we're going to do today, the likelihood is that you will be able to also find and get the guidance from books and from above and from the people with whom you're working. Remember, there was a movie called Love Story, and Papa was saying, who's going to marry you? And they said, we'll marry each other, we'll marry ourselves. Oh, he couldn't stand it. So finally they said, it's okay, we're going to have a minister standing by. But that couple wanted to bring their own awareness, their own intentionality into that ceremony, and so they didn't want sort of a guy with a black book who puts in the names from time to time, and then said, by the authority vested in me, and nobody really vested authority except they want to get it over with so they can have the party, you know. So if you will want to work with people who are getting married, you want to make sure that their marriage will be hassle-proof. You know? So many people, when they get into the first hassles, they don't hassle it out. And if you're going to do that, it's going to be done not only on the physical, not only on the social, you're going to do it on the spiritual, you're going to do it on the divine, and you're going to want to make sure to create such a soul weld between the people, such a destiny weld between these people, so that to pull them apart would take a lot more than the usual pressure that gets people to the divorce court. So these are the kinds of things to keep in mind about ritual and you. But now I want to go to another place, and that has to do with how do you feel about asking people, tell me about your prayer life? And often that's not so easy. But you can say, because that's the kind of relationship that you are in, if they come for spiritual direction. So you can say, I hope I have your permission to open up a conversation with you about your prayer life. And then for people to say what it is that they do and where they find difficulties. I was very young, just out of the yeshiva, when I came across a book in the library, Difficulties in Mental Prayer, by a Father Eugene Boylan. You know, what an important thing this was to me, to see that Goyim also are interested in mental prayer, in deep prayer. You know, I just came out of the yeshiva, I didn't know from such things, and here I see this wonderful book. And as I read it, I get to see more and more how he's talking about the same troubles that we all have, you know. There aren't special spiritual disturbances happening in the prayer life of Catholics that don't have some kind of echo in the life of other people who are trying to pray. So that's universal in a way. By the way, that's what this little pink book, Gate to the Heart, is trying to deal with, to share some of the methods, the upaya of how to handle these things. So let us say you begin to ask the person about this. Sometimes you will see that there is such a reticence, and that is based on many things, but let's begin on the lowest level. Many people are ashamed to let you see what their prayer is like. Because it seems to them, I can't share this, it's so childish, you know? Somebody may say, I'm just twisting my toes very hard and holding myself together, and I'm squinching my face, and I say, pretty please God, you know? But if the person isn't safe to talk to you about that, then you aren't going to get, you know, you can't go up the ladder from the top. You have to go up the ladder from the bottom, and so it's really important to open this thing up. There are times when the other party is so reluctant that they don't know yet what kind of language can they use here, or they are so defended about that. The person who comes to you for spiritual direction is in all probability be called crazy by their family and by the other people around them. You know, it's like the ugly duckling. It's not, they are around there, surrounded by people who don't understand where they're coming from and so on. So there is this sense of, I've been hiding this all my life and I don't want to share this because if anybody gets close to me about that, I know they're going to hurt me. Okay? That's how we get defended about them. So I tell you a little anecdote from my life. I was talking once to my dad and was asking him, what would you like to have done to your remains? Boy, did he blow up on me. Like, I can't wait for him to die. What am I getting into? It was a very hard time. Later on, at another occasion, I said to him, what I intend to have done with my remains is this and that. And then he started to say, you should do it this way or that way. I said, so how do you want it done? Do you understand? It is from leading with your vulnerability about the issues of prayer, and here you have to be careful, I'll get to the careful in a moment, but yielding to those vulnerabilities soften up the heart of the other person too, and they are going to be more willing to risk, because everything in their reptilian system says don't talk about that, but if they feel safe and sacred, both of these are important dimensions, in a safe place, in a sacred place with you, and therefore they can share what's going on. And so when you hear what they're praying, what their prayer life is about, I would say the first time that you just say, this is a suggestion, it may not be the best way to handle it when you get there, but the suggestion is that you simply accept this, what they say, this is how I'm doing it, and so on, these are the problems that I had, and to say, well, so would you please, next time when we meet, tell me a little bit more about how it went during the week to come, and pay attention to it, and then we'll have something important to talk about. Because you need to get the issue, sort of a grist for the mill thing that is a material that's brought up from people, but you want it to be brought up from those regions in their life that you are interested in dealing with them. Okay? So that's one way to begin to speak about it. At one point or another, you will talk to them about the examination of conscience. How do you do this at the end of the day, looking over what you have done, and how do you process it for yourself, and so on? An important consideration. Another one is, there isn't a person who, at one time or another, doesn't pray for another person. So how should we go about interceding for people, to do intercessory prayer? Because very often you may get a phone call from one of the people with whom you're dealing. They may not be in the same town with you, and they may just say, listen, I'm going through a very hard time, please pray for me. Okay? Now, then for you the question is going to be, what makes for good intercessory prayer? Because it isn't only saying words, and so then the question is, where do you put your heart, your mind, your intention when you do that? But that's going to be a learning thing that we can't get into so much today, because there are some simpler things we have to own first. Okay? So inside of me I go, dear God, Holy Mother, how could I mediate that which I feel you want to gift these souls with? And what comes in the end is, do it simple. Do it very simple. Speak the words you wish to say in your prayer loud enough that you could hear them yourself. Okay. There is an element about the word pretend I want you to pay attention to. Most of the time when we say we pretend something is like we are faking it. That's what that word has come to mean. But if you take the Latin pretendere, which is to take before, you haven't gotten it yet, but you're acting as if you had gotten it already. Do you understand? The place that you're going to pretend to is a good place. It's a place of caring, it's a pastoral place, it's a place of being aware of the hurt of the other, of the pain of the other, and so you come from a good place. Often what's going to happen is that thoughts, so many crazy thoughts keep coming up. Who are you to pray for the other person? What right have you got? You know, what do you know? And what do you know what's good for them? Maybe they have to learn the hard lesson first before they get better. You get all these noises, these words in there. And at one point you simply have to put them down and say, yeah, I understand all this, but right now I'm praying for that person. And that calls also on being clear about that you're doing this in the presence of God, that God is here for you at that time. In a little while, we'll have a bit of a celebration, and then we will have a lab on socialized meditation. I promised you also that I would be bringing that recording so that you can hear it. And while we are making the break between the theory and actually getting into the celebration, will be a good time to just sit and listen to that when he plays it, okay? So remember what we talked about the 4 Z's. And that's to say again, the body, the feelings, the heart, the feelings, the mind, and the spirit, these 4 levels. And these 4 levels are also in the way in which we deal with God. There's God as the creator. And that God creates so that arsenic will poison people. You know? It's the God in nature, and you can't deal with that God. That's to say, that God, the Creator, creates nature, and this is the way she is. And you aren't even praying to that God. That's God seen. That's one aspect of God with which the only relationship that you have with that is to say, I'm a creature of that one. You know, I'm constantly being created by that one. But then there is the other level, the feeling level, and there come in those root metaphors that we talked about, that which is the opposite of the oblong blur, you know, which brings in something that the heart can feel. And to that God you can talk. But that aspect of God is not the infinite, all-powerful one. It's not the omni-omni. We speak of that one, as I mentioned to you, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the mother that cares for us. It's the one that we can tell our secrets to, that we can know, that we are seen, that we are noticed in the universe, that we are not an oops that escaped God, yeah, but that we are really here because we are wanted to be here. And with that feeling, you can get into prayer, and you also can get strength from there. And there is also a possibility that through that feeling aspect of God, a miracle can be brought to happen over and against what comes from the God of nature, okay? And then that's separate gods. They're just aspects of how we approach God. Then there is the God who in creating everything knows everything, where it is, feels everything, and hears in everything, lives deep inside everything. The people who are looking for the business of intelligent design forget about God immanent. That's what's so intelligent in the way in which everything moves from the inanimate through the plant life to animate and to becoming conscious. And all that stuff is coming from inside, not from outside. But the people who are advocating intelligent design have sort of God sitting outside of it and saying, let there be, poof, and there was. Instead of going to the place of saying that God, there isn't anything else but God, and all of creation and creatures are God. And whatever is happening from the mitochondria on all the way to global systems, all that is intelligent, is on the inside intelligent design. And when you go and you have that aspect of God, with that aspect of God you haven't got much truck. All you can say is, wow, is he together? Wow, what a universe he made. Do you understand? It's understanding that aspect of that, how would I say, that artistry, that expertise, that amazing thing that God is in the universe. But that's the dative of God. You know, it's just those details, but you don't relate to that. And then there is that aspect of God in which we each, when together, are one with God. And I like to point out to people, you can always argue that everything is the same, and you can say always everything is different. Even identical twins are different. So which way is it? Going to be the same or is it going to be different? It depends. In the universe, in one polarity goes toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being. But then the other direction is to the verse, to the diversity, to the many. So universe, just think of that. And there is a place where we are not in the verse, but we are in the uni. I want to read you a poem that deals with the issue that comes up for many people. How could I pray to God as if God was outside of me, you know? It's all the inside, outside. Aren't we all monists and pantheists and so on and so forth? Why do you talk always when you talk about prayer as if you're talking to somebody else? It's all inside of you, okay? But how could you have devotion to that oneness, you know? To love that, you always need the other. So there's this big paradox. When Ramakrishna would dress himself up as Mother Kali and then worship himself, you know, it was a thing that very few people could understand and see as something sane to do, you know. But from where he was coming from, that was for real. So let me read this to you. Yah, my God, where are you? I call you as if from afar, and you, Redeemer, dwell in my heart so close, and I know it not. Here you are present in my innermost, and so are you at the outermost edge, both source of mine and goal. Where my feelings rise in me, there are you stirring me, nesting in that very womb of my urge. Here in my eye's pupil are you, and I yearn so much to make you object of my sight. My innards would become, if only pure, how I would scour them. My innards would become your sanctuary in me, sacred by your presence. Show me how to host you. What a blessing, you're nestling in my heart. Life of my life, you are within me, so how could I meet you on the outside? My song would be addressed to you were you beside me, and not hidden in my voice. Zoned in the point of knowing you hide in unseen splendor glorious as I seek your glory. In the point of knowing you bide in the unseen splendor glorious as I seek your glory. Lingering on your threshold, my ego squats, claiming to be the legal tenant of your home. More I cannot confuse the two who shimmer as one I amness. Never can I leave this labyrinth myself by myself. Do help me to sortie and free me. Then my prayer will be pure for you. Echo, are you the call or the answer? Even these words, are they mine or are they yours? Help and tell me, love of my heart, are you not also the love and the heart? Yeah, God, adored one, I want to offer you a gift you will not spurn. Let your will become also mine. Is it not already so? Holy solitude, all one, my soul one, my soul's one, my partner, my holy, holy other one. Amen. So this question that people have about the issue of, can there be a monist bhakti, is what this poem just addressed. Yes, you can be a lover, and yes, you can be a monist, and yes, you can understand it, you can get to feel it, but you have to make your way to that place that it doesn't come immediately. So a chant now. Lord, I want to do for you. Lord, I want to feel for you. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you. Lord, I want to do for you. Lord, I want to feel for you. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you. You are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you are being, you are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you just are. Lord, I want to do for you. Lord, I want to feel for you. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you again. Lord, I want to do for you. Lord, I want to feel for you. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you. You are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you are being, you are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you just are. That's chant number one, okay? the second one, so that takes us through those 4 places. The second one goes like this. It is perfect, you are loved, all is clear and I am holy. It is perfect, you are loved, all is clear and I am holy. It is perfect, you are loved, all is clear and I am holy. It is perfect, you are loved, all is clear and I am holy. So you see these 4 keep on coming up all the time in these ways. And if one of the things that happen in your sharing with the person whom you counsel will be, if I were to say, what would be a good preparation? Imagine you were to come and say, I'd like to invite you to be my spiritual director. What would I want you to prepare? To give you homework and to see whether we're going to do it or not. Because if you say right away, I'll do it, your ego may be too eager to help. You may just want to say, I'll pray over that and I'll let you know, because that's important, because you can't be so sure that this person, how would I put it, in Hasidic language you would say, whether the root of that person's soul is with you or not. Okay? If you look at a tree and spiritual directors are sort of branches, and the people on the branches are the leaves, as it were, and sometimes it happens that someone comes to you and it's not the person that you need to deal with. Very often, I could say that people will look for somebody who is be the closest to giving consent to their neurosis. So you don't need that. So one of the things to teach people is what Eugene Gendlin did so wonderfully in his pioneering work, focusing, which is to show people how to get into the here and now of their body, not so much about, what their intellect says they should bring up. Because when you bring up what is happening now and in the body, that's when movement happens. Otherwise, movement doesn't happen, because you're just talking to the head about spiritual things is spinning the wheels, It has to be something in which the heart is involved, and also where there is that kind of feeling, a connection with the body, a groundedness that comes from that. So that's one thing that a person needs to know. And then if you can somehow make sure that they will not make category errors. Category error. If I'm trying to do the business of, Lord, I want to know for you, in the place of, Lord, I want to feel for you, it's not going to work so well. When a person presents an issue, then you might be able to say to them, from which, and I would say domain, from which world are you talking? Is this something that comes up for you from your physical, social situation? Everything is connected anyway. You can't separate them completely, but it helps a lot when a person is able to give words to the place where they are. sometimes just sitting a few minutes with that person in silence is also going to help you to attune to them. You know, when you are open with empathy and say, God shaped my heart so it'll be ready to be with this person fully, you know, this thing. And that'll also help, because they may not even know how to present it as well as their whole being will say it at that time when you're there. There is such a crazy notion in American minds that has to do with playing poker. It goes like this. Nobody knows what's going on in my head, you know? The Germans had a song, Die Gedanken sind frei, wer kann sie erraten? The thoughts are free, nobody can guess at them, you know? Well, it's not true. Imagine if I were to be the person who would be playing poker now, and I have a full house, but like a good poker player, I'm making a face. Like this. Bad cards, right? But my chakras are going to be saying to everybody loud and clear, Zalman has a full house. So it isn't how you present it with your face, it's how you are at that time, and so you can feel that from another person. And sometimes you can broadcast from that feeling place to the other person. It's okay, it's safe. Here's your haven. Speak. And so in this way it can happen. So to make sure that the people will understand both focusing and the four worlds business, then I think you'll be able to have at least a kind of taxonomy to know where does a problem belong, so that you don't confuse it. So good. I think it's about time now that we move into first a celebration, and we will be using these sheets that you receive. A person is on his deathbed and is preparing to let go, like we were singing yesterday. Okay? is now completed. I thank you for taking the burden from me. As I let go and let go and let go. When the time comes for you to go, let it be peaceful and good and loving and with awareness. Amen. I'd like you to have a 5-minute conversation with a person sitting next to you. 2's better than 3's, and talk about what just happened to you. Okay? Give it some words so it doesn't just be a fleeting thing for you. Go ahead.
The preciousness comes more alive when you think of not having
whatever needs. Sometimes I think that whatever needs purpose, whatever need I brought.
So that was all part of it. And we let her die alone on purpose because we knew that she would hang on because she was extremely private and we thought that she would transition to the private. So we left and then we turned after her.
There were these hands, hundreds, reaching for minutes.
I just thought,
If we could bottle the feeling that's in this room at this point and send it to the trouble spots of the world, boy, would there be peace. The love here was so strong, so thick as you were sharing with each other, and what a wonderful thing this is. And so that's what spiritual intimacy is about, you know. And I suppose not every session you're going to have with your people is going to be on that level, but I just wanted you to have a high watermark. So it's to this level to aspire. All right, I'd like you now to take your sheet and open it up to the center. No, we'll leave it to the back. That's fine. And see, turn your seat, your chair, so that you can have eye contact with the person in front of you. Okay? La 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 la. So do the first few stanzas with me. I chant to please you, I weave you dear songs. For you my soul yearns, for you she longs. Nestles in your palm, her love for you grows. She will not rest until it's you she knows. I look forward to speak your praises. My heart to you, its yearning raises. Therefore I will speak the virtues of your fame, and garland with excellence the honor of your name. Though I do not see you, still I draw your face, portray your features, name your place. One more line. Your prophets spoke, your servants darkly knew, in symbols and myths, they refer to you. When describing your power and declaring your care, of your awesome compassion, they made us obey. All right. So here you have the way in which to do that. Except we did it a little too fast. Because we were looking all the time at the words, and that doesn't work so well. So you glance at half of a stanza, if you will, and you would say, I chant to please you, with eye contact with that person. Then you look down again, and then you look again at the person, say, I read you dear songs. You get the idea? So that you complete one of those couplets and you address the person in front of you who keeps their eyes open to let you into the God within. Let me try and explain that. For all the stuff that we have been doing with mysticism, with spirituality, we all say God is on the inside, God is within. But it's very hard to go and talk to the God inside of me. But if I have a good friend, then I can say, would you mind sit down, I want to talk to the God within you. Could you imagine what kind of a world that would be if each one of us would be a log-on place for the other one to get in touch with God? Because at this point, of course, you have to keep reminding yourself that it's not you that they're talking to you, not the ego, but to the God within. So I'd like a group, that tuzi, that dyad, to do this slow, and you don't have to do it in rhythm, you don't have to do it even with a melody. But what you need to do is, when you have that sense, I chant to please you, is to look past the persona in that person to the God within them, okay? So go ahead, do this exercise. You must be able to hear it, so don't do it so quietly. Yes. What I would like to ask you now is, some of you were doing it at the same time, and it's much better that this is done in twos than in threes, because you want to be able to just focus on that other being who has God in them. And when you do that, that's very strong, very powerful. While you're still close to that feeling, I want you to do the following. Think of a person now who is in need of healing or of help, someone you want to pray for. And in not more than, let's say, 15 seconds, make that prayer, looking into the eyes of the person next to you and addressing the God within them, okay? And then switch. Okay, go ahead. Think of a person who needs healing, or a place in the world, whatever, just do that. Decide who is A, who is B. A, begin. Yeah. You talk. Hear from some of you. We'll ask 7 people to say something about what happened for you in this dyadic exchange and in the prayer and the intercession through the heart of the other. Notice there is something when you do these things that you have to keep vigil, not to just go into regular social talk. Because when you descend into that place, you only reinforce that that's the only place where you are with your words. And what happens is that that's what's so hard for people to get into prayer, because they're so involved socially talking all the time. The prayer isn't the way in which they, there's a level when you make an oath, when you read some poetry, or you say some prayer, you go to another part of speech, as it were. And that's important. So could I hear from 7 of you? Please, speak out loud.
I felt singing in harmony with the divine, direct connection and openness to the prayer that was being said. Speaking right to the source.
Next. Yes, please.
When she was making her petition, I so much wanted to grant it. And open my heart, and I so much wanted.
When shamans used to speak about sympathetic magic, it's like saying, "Dear God, do you see what's in my heart for that person? If I could, I surely would grant them their prayer," And that is to reinforce that, to send along your amen, To say, I say amen to your intention, I say amen to your prayer. Please.
When I prayed and when the other prayed back, it was as if it was a gentle wind across a deep pool.
That's why it's such a pity that we don't have any more these kinds of responsive chanting, that would be happening in the monasteries and so on. That thing saint that you were chanting before comes from a Jewish, as it were, monastery of the 12th century in Regensburg, in Ratisbon, Germany. I translated it into English, but there it was, the feeling is very, very clear. So if you can imagine a nighttime, and some people are standing on one side of the choir, and some people on the other side of the choir, and sentence after sentence flows from that. And there's such a sense that if you have a retreat while people are doing that, that you're not in common tongue, you're closer to eternity. And that's what it's very, very beautiful. It's great intentionality, When you put that out, it's very, very very powerful. Two more, please. You?
Just overwhelmed by love. Couldn't hardly speak. With the chant.
See, that's why so many people are so bored in synagogues and churches, because they never get to do it. They never get to do the real thing.
I wanted to pray for my daughter, and I've never had the experience of looking into the eyes of a woman and praying to God. And to pray as a mother to this mother. I saw so much compassion in her eyes. It was wonderful.
Amen. Amen. Well, okay. So here's the next one, okay? In the middle of the page, between page 2 and page 3, you have the Psalm 104. And here's what I want you to do. I wrote it out in such a way that it is in italics and in slate, which is for responses, but I don't want you to do that as response. What I'd like you to do is the following. I'll do a few of the lines for you, but here's what you do. You don't look at the paper while I'm reading, okay? I will do the audio, and you have to do the filio and the video, okay? You are so vast and great, all veiled in pride and glory. You are wrapped in light. The sky you spread like a sheet. Your upper chambers are roofed with water as you bestride clouds. You waft on the wings of wind. The breezes you send are your aids, your helpers blazing flames. You founded earth so sound, to outlast time itself. I think you got it if I watch you, yeah? You're getting close to that somebody can read for you and you can hear that. So the person who will read will sit close, maybe a little bit closer than face to face, closer mouth to ear, and read that very slowly. When you're coming to the bottom of the page 2, then switch. And the person who was doing the I'd like the few 5 voices now to tell us a little bit about what that was like for you when you were reading and when you were receiving. Please stand loud.
When I was being read to, I said to Karen, it was like being on a spiritual National Geographic exploration. I felt truly connected with the beloved and nature. And then when I was actually telling the story to Karen, it was like whispering to a lover.
That opens the heart. But the other thing is also when you can go into the scenery there, because very often when people say these words, they don't visualize it, they don't bring it to the heart. 3 more.
In both ways. When I was reading, it's like we were.
Amen. So you see the notions that people have as to what constitutes the union, and seeing it only as, you take the word love and you check how often it comes up in the songs and the radio. But most of the time it talks about making out. It doesn't. We haven't heard much lately about love for God, for nature, for parents, for children. There aren't that many songs around about that. It's a pity that how love has shrunken. But when you get to a place where you can do this with another person, and one thing is so wonderful, there's no bad karma connected with it. You can't get pregnant, you know. Venereal disease, all that. And yet at the same time, it would be that if you were to ask deeply down, that's more what I wanted than anything else. So that's important, especially for older folks, to be able to do that, to get used to it. If I had my druthers, the kind of home for the aged that I would want to have is, it would be so delicious. Some of the things that we would do there, just real good preparation. All right, anyone else? Please.
I'm going to start to try to put together a prayer. I thought about, someone told me that up to 40,000 children are dying each day unnecessarily. So I began to cry as I started to think about it. And I prayed to my partner that that's a great mother. And then what came back right away is, what can I do? And so I prayed for the strength and courage to do something.
Thank you. I want to say something about the what can I do, because there is always a feeling that comes back and says, if you're really serious about it, what do you put into the process? And that's where the Tibetans are really good when they're saying, dedicate merit, for instance, or putting some money aside for charity, or deciding a good act that you can do in the world, which is like saying, I pray for that and I will do something like it. And it's so wonderful. The internet has helped us with so many things. Just on Friday I received a call and a notice on email that for $1 you can make real good weather blankets available to send to the people in right under the earthquake, and it's getting really cold there. So you see that at that point when you say, you can almost say, and I so mean it that I will do such and such. Now, the people make a mistake when they say that you're trying to bribe God. See, I'll pay for it, so I don't want to bother you, I'm going to put something. That's not the feeling that comes. That's when somebody's from the outside at it. the inside is, I really so mean it, and with this act, I will make my meaning firm. One more. All right, please.
My inner cynic that thought maybe God doesn't listen and maybe God doesn't speak to me was silenced, I think, by this practice.
Yes. There's a wonderful psalm that says, fools, get it straight. The one who plants an eye, can he not see? The one who gives you an ear, can that one not hear? The one who makes you conscious, is that one not conscious? You know, and you get that in an immediate sense when you're doing it with your brain. Now we're going to do another one. This one is making credo. Okay? What is it that you believe? But you're not going to do it by yourself. You're going to start a sentence like A says, I believe that the purpose of life is, and turns to B, and B has to finish the sentence. Then B starts the next sentence, and A has to finish the sentence. And it goes back and forth a few times, and you don't know what the other one is going to say. Okay. But that opens us up to not drive by the rearview mirror. I can't use anything that I did before, because I can't take one of my tapes, one of my raps, and put it out, because I don't know what the other one is going to say. Plus the fact that I honor the other one as being a center of, I can't manipulate them, I don't want to manipulate them, I want them to say what comes up, spontaneously what wells up in their heart. And then you continue and turn it back and forth and see where it will take you. Go ahead.
Go first. I believe that fairies I believe that the sky is more deeply interconnected.
Great Scott.
We do that. And that creation. I believe that hope
When you first get started, it falls apart pretty soon. It falls apart pretty soon. Just to say, after a while you're going to start talking about other stuff. Because you aren't quite used to it yet, to be able to continue that for, let us say, 5-10 minutes. And see how you think together, you know, because that's what happens. You begin to think more and more together. Sometimes you act like a trickster, you know, you give the other one something to stumble over and say, let's see what That's not kosher. have to bring the same generosity of spirit to the other, to say, I'm not here to stump you. I'm here to evoke from you something you don't know yet yourself until you say it. You know, and you do this to me the same way. And so we are beginning to enter into a wonderful, special territory that we aren't in usually. But you will see that somehow in your practice you will find that if you can entrain your person with whom you're working to do that, what will happen is that you are not going to be dealing with old beliefs so much as with what's currently coming down for you. That's why I mean, when I was saying this business with the rear view mirror, you know. Another way in which you can do that sometimes, if you can get beyond the verbal, is to start singing a melody and the other person responds with another phrase, and then you respond with another phrase, and do this spontaneously, and you see what kind of a wonderful artist there is inside of you. So I'm concerned for where we are, and I want us to get ready for a closure that has to happen. And these are the things that I hope that you will practice some more before you take them out into the world. Okay? Because when you do it with self-consciousness, you transmit to the other person self-consciousness. And then they won't want to do this again. But if you do it without self-consciousness, what you will say, you won't be able to wait until the next time you're going to be able to do that juicy stuff again, you know? So that's going to be important. Don't we have a mic now, or what's going on?
It's going to take a couple minutes.
All right. So I have another exercise for you. But this time, I don't want you to do it with the same person. Because you already heard what concerns there are, what the other one is thinking about, and I want you not to have any precedent for that. Okay? So I want you to take another person and stand up with facing that other person. Put things down. It's all right if fate has set you together. Maybe you switch with somebody else, it would be better that way.
Anybody without a partner?
All right, it's happening. And without, at this point I would want to say close your eyes and face that person. Maybe you put your hands on the shoulders of your partner. And A begins to feel what blessing the other person needs and brings down that blessing. You say, may God bless you with, and you say whatever it is that you feel the blessing that's coming down. Again, not too long, not too wordy, but what do you feel the other one needs? And then switch. Go ahead. When you're done, sit down. The strange thing is that it's not, in the end, I bless you, but I transmit the blessings that's waiting for you, right? And that's how it says in the Bible. God spoke to Moses saying, speak to Aaron your brother and tell him, thus you shall bless the children of Israel and say unto them, the Lord bless you and keep you, the Lord lift his countenance to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord raise you up in blessing and give you peace. And then it says, and you put my name on the children of Israel and I will bless them. You know, it's like saying what you are is you're creating a vehicle, or if, say, you're writing the address, you know, on the envelope that a person should be able to get it. And it comes from that sense of love that you have experienced with each other this morning, so rich and so beautiful, so that the commandment, and thou shalt love the neighbor as thyself, has become really demonstrated for you in this thing. That yes, you felt you were lovable because you got such good love. And it's not that you deserved it, you know, but you're getting it. Right? and the same way you're giving it, and it feels like that flow is so wonderful. And what I try to do with all these things is to show you how to socialize your spiritual work. So that it shouldn't be just sitting on the cushion, you know, inside of yourself. Because the fibers are so short, the social fibers in the world. And whatever we can do to lengthen them, to infuse them with blessing, with love, with stuff to share, that's an antidote to suicide bombers. You gotta have that sense of this is what we have to spread in the world, this kind of doing. There's more to it. When my toe needs something in my body, it does not have to write a petition and fill it out in triplicate in order to get what it needs. The body is immediately responding. But could you imagine if what happened at the tsunami and at the earthquake and at the storms, that sense that was so clear to everybody, we got to do something about it, we need to help, and so on and so forth. We were acting as if we were part of one body. Except we do this only intermittently and only when the ouch gets so great. But could you imagine what it would be like if we could do this? The threshold would be a little bit lower and it wouldn't have to reach such catastrophic proportions before we begin to respond this way. And so that's really part of the work of socializing, the prayer thing. And blessing is really necessary because, you know, it's like watering the seed that you have planted. It does two things. On the one hand, whatever instructions came or whatever experience happened in that encounter that you had, that will become fertile by the blessing. And that's an important part. But there's another important part there, which is that when the next person comes and you talk to the next person, you won't be talking to the first person. Anybody who's ever been involved in counseling has experienced that thing, you know? I'm talking to the next person, but I'm still talking to the condition of the first one. I didn't sort of, what's the word, degauss my consciousness from where I was before. I still have that feeling. But if you give a blessing, that's also a way of saying, and now, and then you can breathe in the next person that you're involved in, but it doesn't have to be that you're carrying from one to the other. I'm going to leave now about 5-10 minutes for any questions that come up, and then I have a few more things to do, so we finish our session this morning in a good way. Speak up of anything that you'd like to raise with me.
So,
please.
The Wisdom Keepers Project, can you tell us of it and how we should stand toward it?
You know, I don't have that in my consciousness right now, but I think you can Google it up. And you're going to find websites and phone numbers and things that you can do. But basically, what's behind it, I can talk about that. When I was saying that the social fibers are short, the time fibers are also very short. Time is rushing so fast. If you take a look, that, like I was saying that the other day, the headline of the Buddha gets enlightened one day, and the next day, you wrap a herring in that newspaper. You know, it doesn't have staying power. This kind of stuff, and what we need to do is give it staying power. And we make the things longer, you know, the time things longer, to think about longer things. Take a look what's happened to our economy with people paying attention only to the quarterly bottom line. And nobody thinks enough about 7 generations ahead. And so, one of the things for which the planet is giving us extra lifespan right now is that elder mind should be able to help the planet with wisdom, because wisdom isn't information. Wisdom is how to use and what to use the information for. So that's what's behind that. And it's so interesting that this is the older population, and there's a new population coming in. There are children being born who are really rescuers for the planet. People talk about them as the indigo children. And it is amazing what seems to come out from them. I go back to once when my daughter, you know, all this is a game that happens before you go to sleep. And always a new question comes up, and then and they're clever because they come up with, they know how to catch you, you know. So my daughter says, Abba, tell me, when you're asleep you can wake up, right? When you wake up, when you're awake, can you wake up even more? Okay? What a wonderful question, right? She answered it herself, you know, about waking up even more. Another time it happened that, this was Yotam, he says, Abba, what happens to people when they die? I said, what do you think? He says, well, we have 2 lives. We have a dream life and we have a wake life. And I think the wake life stops and the dream life continues. You know, it is such a wonderful thing. Sometimes the kids, if we could just, how would I say, clean up middle school, you know, so that there could be a little bit of innocence still around. If we could clean up the lousy media, you know, that has teens in bed with each other and violence galore. And so it's such a desensitizing that's going on. So whatever we can to help those children, it's really important. So with this thing of blessing and what elders can do, it's like to offer that service. In spiritual eldering work, I talk about the 3 months of the year that haven't got programs. If I think of every 7 years like being a month, so January is until you get, you know, the first 7 years, you get your second teeth in, you know, and the next 7 years is puberty, and the next 7 years you're 21, and so it keeps on going. By this time it's in March, By the end of April, you have your Saturn return, and so it keeps on going. And life, midlife crisis, bound to be somewhere when you're between the 40s and the 50s, right? And all that's sort of what's going to happen. And for every part of our life, there are models around. But when you get to be from 63 on, as it were, then you don't have many models. And so we have to do aging ourselves in a way that is going to be right. So I call that preparation of the October years, when you learn how to be an elder, when you acquire the tools for eldering, when you take responsibility for things, when you come to terms with your mortality. All these kinds of things happen. In November is a time to pay back to the world. And most of us, could then follow the model of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. It doesn't have to be on the global scene, but we can do it wherever we are. There's an elders group that got started in Phoenix, Arizona about 12 years ago. And they're still buddies with each other, and they're mentoring kids, and they're doing all kinds of these wonderful things of acting locally while thinking globally. So that's on wisdom. Anything else, please?
I'm confused about the power of prayer. I know research has been done where people have prayed for other people who are sick and they got better. But, I'm feeling like, doesn't God know what he's doing? Like why would my prayer make a difference?
That's the question that says to me that you have to break down the God image from before. Because that was still the thing, the patriarchal God sitting in heaven, omni this and omni that, and can do everything. And then sometimes you have the question, if God is good, then he isn't God. Then he isn't all-powerful. If God is God, then he isn't good. Take the odd, like it goes in the play. So you really have to get rid of that notion that speaks for this. But on the other hand, if you go to the responsiveness that we find in the universe, even with the business with water, that crystals of water will come out differently when influenced with things, then you see it's working that way. Even I snuck up to the water tower on top of the ridge and did graffiti for health and for blessing and for all kinds of things at the water tower. So, I mean, if it works, why not, We could all use it. So, I mean to say, it works. Thought does achieve something. And my sense is that sometimes we need enough people to do it at the same time, You remember when the Romans used to walk across a bridge, they were told to break step, otherwise the bridge would collapse because the vibrations would get so strong. That's why convergences are important. That's why whenever we do it, and that's why Sunday morning is important. Soon we're going to do something for Sunday morning to catch up on that updraft. All right. I would say that's a question that comes from to confuse the heart. Okay.
See, the reason for this is in
Yeah.
my life,
Yeah.
I find that God is working in my life.
Yeah.
Without even my asking for a specific thing, it comes. So I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I don't have to do anything.
Well, it's true also that the first thing that you do have to do is to appreciate, give thanks. But there's always something sneaking in, oh, this is so wonderful. If you were to still put a little bit something else inside, it would be good. I think if watch Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof, and you get a sense of someone who is really intimate with God while he's milking the cow, there is something to it. And I tell you what, the best thing is you could ask God next time, why should I talk to you? Okay. Yes.
personal practice, I mean, us crazy people, like you referred to us earlier, myself, I'm feeling drawn in so many different directions all the time. How do you do personal discernment on a day-to-day basis, if you might share a practice, where to put your energy in that day, if you might?
Well, one of the things, whatever practice you do in the morning, it's good to sit with a sheet of paper. When I did my prayer this morning, I took orders what to do with you, okay? And I marked it down, because these things are very fleeting. They go very fast. You don't want them to disappear so fast, right? So you mark them down, and you can check them off. And I find, just like I told you the story about the church fathers, you know, if you do something with the verbum you got yesterday, you're going to get a new one today. And I think that's very for real. Now with my palm cord, it's much easier than I used to do before. I used to have 3x5 cards with every section of the prayer, of the Amida prayer, marked. So during the day, when something would occur to me to take up with God, I would write it down there. And when in the afternoon prayer came, there was a place in the prayer, then I would stop and say what came up. You know, there is something. People always want something sort of like the angel should come and the music should play and what have you. It's a very prosaic thing sometimes, to be able to say, I'm willing to do the work, but I haven't got the wherewithal. It's your job, okay? Just as simple as you would say it this way. Okay, one more. That's the last.
How is it that you work with your own body to feel the presence of God in you as well as to feel yourself?
It depends on the day. To be honest, it's not every day this way. Shabbos is different, and the weekday is different, and it depends also what's happening in the world, you know. Can you imagine what it was like when we said the afternoon prayer on 9/11, you know? It wasn't like every day this way. So I think the thing that helps the body is to find the same place. Sometimes to light a stick of incense, to light some candles, because that is the way in which the body says, this is the time, this is the space where I'm going into. In truth, there are also some times when I have to say, dear God, the jobs you gave me are so many and so big, I haven't got time to talk to you long. And this is so I tell you a story. There was a man who saw himself as being a very strong devotee of Krishna. So one day he meets Krishna and he says, Lord Krishna, am I not your best devotee? He says, oh, you're a wonderful devotee, but you're number 2. Who's number 1? So he tells so-and-so, you know, is number 1, he lives in this place. So he makes his way to try and figure out, to see what this other guy does. Maybe he can outdo him in this thing. So he comes to see him and watches him and sees nothing. He gets up in the morning and says, good morning, Lord Krishna. A whole day he does whatever he's doing. The night he says, good night, Lord Krishna. He goes back and complains. He says, so why is he the best? The best devotee that you have? So Krishna says, I'll tell you. Fill up a vessel with water to the brim, okay? And with both hands carry it 7 times around the house very quickly. Make sure you don't spill a drop. Go ahead. So he takes a pot, fills it with water, walks around 7 times, and manages not to spill and says, yes, Lord Krishna, I've done what you asked. How many times did you sing my praises? He says, I was so busy doing what you told me. Okay? I love that story because sometimes that's where I am, you know, not very exalted and so on and so forth. But now we're going to get exalted. Put things down. sort of a little free. Good. So that I can see you better in the back. Okay.
He has risen.
I will chant the line and you will respond with Hallelujah. And I will chant another line and you'll respond with Hallelujah. I will take it a little bit higher so you can use your voices better. Sopranos are just to come out from the closet now. Hallelujah. Can I have some harmony from you? Hallelujah. And for some Italian arpeggios on top of it. From the earth. Hallelujah. The big whales and the guppies too. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord, sun and moon. Stars of light. Hallelujah. Mountains and all hills. Hallelujah. Fruit trees and tall cedars. Snow and fog. Hallelujah. Stormy wind fulfilling God's word. Hallelujah. Prime ministers and presidents. Hallelujah. Bureaucrats and officials too. Young men and maidens. Hallelujah. Old folks and little kids. Hallelujah. Let them all praise the name of the Lord. Praising Him, we too are exalted. Hallelujah. Vayarim keren le'amo. Hallelujah. Tila lechol chasidav l'nei Yisrael am kerobo. Hallelujah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's how the umbilical is okay. All right. Are you about ready? Willie?
Yes.
All right, not yet. Okay. This last thing that we're going to do asks of you to shed the last bit of self-consciousness that you have. And I want you to close your eyes when you're doing this and allow for sound to come forth like speaking in tongues. Not with particular words, but whatever sounds come from you. And you join in with the sounds of what you will hear on this recording. This was done at the Transpersonal Congress in 1982 in Bombay, and I was doing what I call the transpersonal mass with them. And I was doing the shofar, the ram's horn, and Paul Horn was playing the flute. And the people were chanting in such a way that they were opening themselves up. And it was at the height of the Cold War when we were saying we were minutes away from a nuclear holocaust, that we were praying for peace. We have lots of things to pray for, and do it not with words, see what comes out of you when you're doing it, okay? Do it with eyes closed, and feel free to move your body wherever it wants to move in order to let the sound out. Ready?
What is it that you want really to be different? Begin to visualize it, formulate it, put it into words. Let it go into sound, let it move into scream, let it be a song, whichever way it wishes out of you. planet have become mature. Hare Om, Hare Om, Hare Om. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om. Sing Shalom Tovah. Sing Shalom Tovah. Grant us peace, Lord of peace. Grant us peace. Grant us peace, Lord of peace. Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Magnified and sanctified be God's great name in this world, which He created according to His will. May His kingdom come and His will be done speedily in our day. Let us all say, Amen. Amen. Lord, glorified, praised, exalted, beyond all words, beyond all hymns, that all creation can utter to you, Lord. Yes, beyond that, we acknowledge you. Amen. In all the prayers and supplications that stirred in the hearts of people tonight be accepted by our parents in heaven. Let us say, Amen. Amen. May He, who makes peace in the high spirit, lead us to peace and the whole world. And let us say, Amen. Amen. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share and yes, we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share as we live.
Amen. Settle down again. Thank you. We're almost finished. According to the way in which I was drawing for you the years, October years, November years, I'm in my December years now. And I still have some mileage left. But it's not likely that I will meet with you again. So I would like to offer you a transmission now, so that not I, but what came through me today should be accessible to you. So we will breathe now, and I'll keep in mind what I breathe out, you breathe in, what you breathe out, I breathe in, back and forth, and we'll do this for a little while. And whatever it is that you will want to, whenever it is that you will want to boot up the software that we shared this weekend, you should be able to do that and should be able to come to you with ease. So let's do that. Echad Yachid Umeyuchad. Echad Yachid Umeyuchad. Now it's the other one. Tamid, 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 Echad. Tamid, 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 Echad, 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 Tamid, Echad, 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 Tamid, always and forever, always and forever, always and forever, one, always and forever, always and forever, always and forever, one. One, forever, one, always and forever, one. One, forever, one, always and forever, one. Atum, could you come here? So rabbis, when they ordain people, they ordain fellow Jews and other rabbis. So here I'm ordaining this guy here. Which is that whatever you have done up to now should be blessed with even more, and whatever you've gotten from me and from other teachers should become such a good stew inside here. And that you will feed God's children who are hungry and help them do what they need to do. Amen. So now you let me disappear because I'm gonna stick around yet, but not here right now. I want to go home and rest a bit. Bless you all. Kol tuv to you.